Brigit, welcome back to the podcast. I think you are the first person that I've had on twice. So you were in season 1. You had a wonderful story that was great that we're going to pick up and talk a little bit about. But thanks for playing ball and coming back.
Gosh, Todd, that's such an honor. I'm excited. I'm excited to do the combo. It's going to be fun.
It'll be good. And I think a lot of water has gone under the bridge since we last talked. And so I think this is good. I guess maybe what I'll start with is I appreciate your authenticity. I think you were super vulnerable. I think you were pretty clear about like some of the challenges and stuff you had. And I think what was interesting to me was we did the first episode and then you and I kind of kept in touch. And then, you know, some of the things weren't working as well as you'd hoped. And you were able to basically right the ship. And so a lot of what we're trying to do today is talk about lessons learned and giving real world experiences about like, this isn't always fun and it's not always buttoned up properly. And there's definitely some valleys in these journeys. And I think sometimes we gloss over those and we talk about the successes, which is great. But I think like getting there is that. So maybe why don't we start with you giving a little bit of intro about like where you were before you started a company called Fomeno, the genesis of it. You got some traction, you had some good press, you won some money, and then you're in a different spot today. So maybe I'll let you start with an intro there.
Absolutely. Thanks for teeing that up. So yeah, my name's Brigit Torborg. My maiden name is Blody. And yeah, exactly to what you said, Todd. So basically when I was in college, a few friends of mine and I started a startup in the fashion tech space. So we were basically creating this aggregator. We wanted to tap into big online secondhand clothing stores like Poshmark, ThredUp, Depop, eBay, things like that. Pull a very filtered version of their best inventory to one location. So from a consumer standpoint, if you're looking for, a Patagonia jacket or something very specific in your size, you'd be able to find the best options. So that's how we originally started. And we ended up raising some capital off that. And yeah, just like going to town building.
You won some money in a business plan competition?
Yeah. So during the height of COVID, we were pitching in the Holt Prize, which is a accelerator for essentially college university students. I think it takes place in like 121 countries over close to 2,000 college campuses. So wow. The pandemic hit right when we were going through that experience. And so what used to be like a very in-person accelerator program turned out to be like a online, like hunker down from our college dorm rooms experience. Like we would get up every morning at 8 a.m. and pitch our startup and we'd get ranked. And it was super fun, honestly. So we worked our way through there and ended up winning some capital from that. And then, yeah, we ended up raising from some angels for some additional capital to build out the initial product. And yeah, it was really fun. We had no idea what we were doing. I mean, I was 21.
Like a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, how can you know until you really get after it or have some solid mentorship? And even then a lot of it is just you learning by experience, and that's what we were doing. So
would you say there was two fundamental problems with it? I think there was a unit economics problem, and then you had a technical problem. Like those are the two that at least I remember you probably talking the most about when you were talking about Fomeno. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's totally fair. We got to building, we started building. I mean, actually, I think there's a third problem there that has come up or resurfaced more recently. But essentially, yeah, we didn't have a technical co-founder ever. So that always was a big challenge, especially pre like the AI boom that we're in now. There's so many tools today that just did not exist when we were building a few, 5-6 years ago. And it's so cool to me to be able to see how much entrepreneurs have at their fingertips just to create a minimum viable product, like an MVP today, whereas we did not have access to those tools. So yeah, number one, biggest struggle, never had a technical co-founder. Number two, unit economics. I mean, just imagine you're selling secondhand clothing. There's only one of every kind. I think I might have mentioned in our conversation, I was fundraising and, flying around New York Tech Week, stuff like that, just trying to get conversations with VCs. And I ended up booking a meeting with the founder of TripAdvisor because we have similar business models. Anyway, we had this conversation. He's sitting down. He's like, yeah, cool idea, but like this will never work. Like the unit economics don't make sense. He's like, I can sell a hotel room night after night over and over for years. You can only sell one piece of clothing one time.
Yeah.
Everything's one of a kind. So we definitely were hitting some rough roadblocks in terms of the unit economics of that. But then the third thing I will add too is product market fit. Like, we built something that everyone said was cool. Like, people were like, wow, this is really cool. Essentially, yeah, it was an aggregator, and there was this component where this feature where you could thrift what influencers are wearing. So you could scroll through the app, very similar to Pinterest. At one point, I know our users were calling us like the secondhand Pinterest, but it felt very similar. Scroll through influencer photos, and we could thrift their outfits. And it was cool. Like, it was, but it wasn't like solving a pain point. People would get on there and be like, wow, this is really awesome. And then it would end there. Not like, oh my gosh, like, I'm going to do all of my clothing shopping through this app. We didn't ever get to that point. And so, yeah, I'd really say the third problem there was like product market fit, like not totally nailing the pain point that users had and then offering the best solution. Might have been a cool solution, but it wasn't like truly the best fit.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, those are good. And I think, those are all big ones that, if you don't nail, you don't have a business. Mm-hmm. And so talk to me a little bit about, coming to the realization. That's hard, right? It's saying your baby's ugly. And then not only that, but like lots of people, right? You went to talk a ton of VCs and people to raise money. And some people are probably more direct than others as far as like they vote no, but they don't give you that specific information sometimes. And so how do you reach a conclusion of like, this is not a business that's actually going to work as it's currently constructed?
Yeah. So, I mean, to address the part of the baby being ugly, like, it's devastating. Honestly, like, you, especially being so new to this industry, I mean, you raise capital and then you think you've got it and you're onto it and it's going to work. And I became so passionate about this. I mean, I was a college athlete. I stopped, competing early because we had raised capital. I wanted to go all in on this. Like, there's a lot of sacrifices that you make as an entrepreneur. And so when it doesn't work, it's not even just that the business didn't work and the stream didn't work. It's like you also sacrificed a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's personal.
So, I mean, yeah. I think that was the first and foremost difficult thing. It's just like, oh my gosh, this dream is like not working out how I thought it would be. That's really devastating. But in turn too, like, one door closes, like a billion more open. And it's been, we're even having this conversation today. So clearly like good things are right around the corner. But, yeah, I think, it was just hard to answer your question. It was really difficult, but opened up a lot of new opportunities, which was fun.
But like talking about your folks, right? This isn't just you. You had multiple people in this and stuff. And so were people getting tired? Were people like getting to the point where like, I guess I'm just trying to figure out like, how do you make this decision, right? Like, because I think entrepreneur is a fine line between lots of people telling you no and you still do it. And then in some cases, like people telling you no, there's a reason. And so I think that's super hard to go, is this a time to keep pushing? Or is this a time to like readdress and figure out like, do we have the model wrong?
Yeah. So it was a bit of both, right? Like, to your point, some of the things that were just screaming at us, like, it's time to pause. It's time to like reset, repivot, start new, whatever we want to call it. It would like, we're hitting an inflection point where change was about to happen. And a couple of things brought that on. One, it costs money to live. Like, you get to a point where you're out there and you're like, gosh darn it, like cash flow. Like the biggest reason businesses fail is because they run out of cash. And so definitely like the bank account was getting low. It's really interesting too, being a founder when you're in your 20s, you're transitioning into like the quote unquote real world. Like the real world comes with health insurance and it comes with like all these things where certain, co-founders and members just like hit different parts in their lives where they're like, I need X, Y, or Z. I'm not getting that anymore from the startup. My risk tolerance is decreasing for whatever reason, which is totally respectable. Like that's real life. And so I think just internally with the team, like things were changing and people were just needing to get some more stable jobs for sure. Yeah. And yeah, I think, and obviously the cash flow of the business was starting to be like, ooh, this is getting to a point where like, it's just maybe not making sense. Like things need to change. And I think that's even Todd, when we had our first conversation, it was more of like, I know you said this is the second time we're on the podcast. The first time I mentioned this to you earlier, like I was not like, I think I was unresponsive to your emails. I was like, I'm not talking about this experience. Like this is going downhill. I'm not going to share this publicly.
Here we are.
Yeah. So I think a lot of things changed and we definitely got to the point, just risk tolerance, where it was like, okay, this doesn't really maybe make the most sense right now.
Okay, so that's good. I mean, that's a hard fork. And you have two choices, right? You can basically say, I'm going to pivot and do something different with some of the same concepts, or it's just dead and we all go find jobs. And so what makes you go, there's something here still? I'm still passionate about the space. And I'm willing to still make those sacrifices because, like you get burnt hard and you put a lot of time and effort. You make some concessions, like you said. And not everybody followed you through that whole process, right? You don't have the same founders. But like, I think that's hard, right? And I know the same thing from my standpoint. Like my first startup, I lost everybody's money. I basically sold my car to make payroll. I got out of my apartment to make payroll, and I still, it still went up in smoke. And so I didn't go back and redo that one because I knew that one was kind of wrong. But I did another one and started and had more success. But you basically are kind of saying, I like the concept. I like the space. I've got a lot of domain expertise around this. I've thought about the problem. And so what makes you want to say pivot versus go get a full-time job?
So I did a little bit of both, actually. And yeah, so I mean, to your point, Todd, like one, I think I just have an entrepreneurial spirit. I like solving problems. I don't like the fact that a lot of like regular academia, there's like one path to get one answer. And like in business, the thing that I love is like, no, there's actually like a billion different paths and there's a billion different answers and they could all be really good. So creative problem solving and just spotting problems and trying to offer fun solutions. It's really cool. I just get super excited about it. And so I think I started to find out about myself personally. Like I love entrepreneurship. Frankly, I kind of love the risk of it. I recognize that I'm young and like I have my whole life to be comfortable. I want to like see what can be done here. And yeah, I think that goes beyond age too, though. Like there's you could be 80 and have that mindset. Like, we
started an accelerator. I'm like 54.
Yeah, exactly. Like, why not? I think, yeah, I mean, I'm a firm believer in just, if you're excited about something and you're really passionate about it, like try it, like you'll make it, you'll at least explore it and you will grow because of that. I mean, so even like to your point, did you get a full-time job? Did you keep going? I did get a full-time job and I would not have ended up, I'm at a startup right now, a financial modeling startup called Forecaster. I wouldn't have this job if it weren't for all the risks I took at Fomeno. So, yeah, I mean, again, like one door closes, some other ones open, really good things are around the corner. I'm like always really big into that. But yeah, so I ended up getting a full-time job, like, parallel to exploring like a pivot, just so that I could both balance like what I needed to meet my day-to-day needs and then also to just continue exploring like what could be here. So definitely looked for what opportunities would be able to balance both. And I think that's just something every entrepreneur who has a full-time job is always trying to figure out how to juggle that. And I don't know if there's a clear answer to how to do it gracefully, but you just kind of just have to do it. So yeah, I'm not sure if that totally answers your question, but that's kind of the path that I started to take as we were exploring, how to use all the knowledge we learned of this industry and figure out if we just weren't solving the right problem or that one problem in the correct way.
Okay. So, I guess maybe this is where you and I had a couple of conversations about joining Wildfire Labs. And, I'm curious from your perspective on, so you have a new kind of model. And I would say you haven't figured everything out, but you basically, I would say, have a new business that has upside in it. And, the early results are better than what you did before. It looks like there's a viable business for you. I'm curious about just like what's different, right? I mean, obviously you have a book of experience that you've done. I think, certainly Wildfire provides some structure. It provides some mentorship, and it provides some focus, right? Like we're pretty accountable on like you got goals and you got to keep going through them. And what we're really trying to do is create focus so that you know what goals and what dependencies you have on it. So kind of take it wherever you go. I'm curious on just like you didn't have a lot of structure or a lot of your support structure, I think, in your first startup version of it was not great. I mean, I think like the mentors that you had around you, you had some, but I think like people that were in the day to day, to basically to be able to solve those three problems probably weren't there to help you kind of go, I don't know if that's going to work or not, because they didn't have expertise probably. But
Yeah.
I'm curious on this kind of pivot and why you feel differently and kind of what you got out of a process like ours, that made kind of the outcome different.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, I still remember the first time. I remember exactly where I was even in our apartment, like when I was talking to you on the phone, Todd, because I was at that point, and I think a lot of startup founders get there, right? It's like, this isn't working. I don't want to give up, but like, I don't know what else to do, you know? Like, I don't know what other options there are here, and I'm getting burnt
Yeah.
out here. So, yeah, I just found myself through the whole experience of doing Fomeno, like, I never I had some good mentors, you know, but I didn't have like full on mentorship of someone helping me figure this out. And I think with every startup, it's so hard unless you're a seasoned veteran and you've done this, you've been around the block. Like, to our point from the beginning, how are you supposed to know what to do when you're
Yeah.
getting faced with brand new problems? And usually the way you're learning how to overcome them is by just trying things and failing. And at some point, you know, that you burn through cash faster. You waste time. You do all these things where it starts to make founders tired. So I always wanted, and I remember this so clearly with Fomeno, I found myself in these positions where I always wished I just had someone I could pick up the phone and call. And at some point, like, my parents just like can't fill that void all the time, you know, on them. And so I just, yeah, I mean, with Wildfire, like, I remember talking to you on the phone and I was like, okay, you know, this would be worth another shot if I had one, a little bit more structure, a little bit better of like a framework to figure out our ICP and figure out where we're going wrong with how we're, you know, offering our solution. And then most importantly, like, I want to have someone that when X, Y, or Z comes up, I can just pick up the phone and call someone and just be like, hey, what do you think?
Yeah.
Like, what am I not seeing? How would you go about this? And I think that's just like the biggest value add from Wildfire is that you guys have done that for me and more, and for our entire team, as we've been building out this new company.
Okay, well, that's good. I appreciate the kind words. I do think that having people that have been in the trenches and actually done it is a big part of this, right? I think like so many times, you know, I mean, part of this is domain expertise. Some of it is there's finance people that want to help, but they're looking at it as an investment. You got people that are community leaders that are well-intended but have never run a business. And so, you know, and I think we only do software, right? And so that's all we know. And so when you think about Mike and I mean, that's what our backgrounds have been. And so diversifying from that just doesn't make any sense because we can't add as much value. And so I think it's good from our standpoint. So maybe talk to me more tactically. I mean, it was a messy process. You basically had Fermento. You wanted to basically close that business, get rid of the cap table, investors, restart with something else. You had things like social media where you're like, I have a community over here that probably fits the community over here. How do I, like, what do I do with all this stuff? And so, you know, like, I think it's kind of messy, but I think lots of entrepreneurs are kind of going, yeah, I've had this problem, or like, I might have this problem. And, you know, tell me how you navigate that. Cause it's not easy.
Yeah. Again, to the point of like, there's not a clear black and white, like, here is your execution plan. I mean, there are definitely some key takeaways that I'm like, ooh, I would have done that differently or this or that. But everybody's position is different. Your team is different. Your dynamics are different. What you had access to in the first startup is different than what might, you know, everything's different. But what was cool is, to your point, we had a very similar community to some degree with the first startup, with what we were expanding to in the new startup, which I can even explain in a second, and just like how even the new startup works and how we, you know, kind of pivoted. But we had a similar community. And so when we started transitioning things over, I guess before I even go into community, I'd say the biggest thing is just like, you know, being willing to say that, like, hey, we built something that it just like straight up isn't working. And I think for me, I was so, oh my gosh, like, I was dreading telling our investors. I was super dreading telling like our community. I was embarrassed about it. I was just like, this, you know, this isn't what I wanted to have to share. And frankly, like, from the investor standpoint, I know, like, our investors have worked hard for the money that they invested in the company. And I felt that responsibility. Like, I want to be a steward of these funds. And I felt like I'd failed in that category. And so that was really difficult too, is like having to say, like, you believed in me, and like, ooh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
like address, it's hard.
Yeah, it is hard.
But that was the first thing, is like, I just need to communicate this with our investors first and foremost, and like work my way out of the circle. So starting obviously with the team, just getting it on the same page of like, where are we going here? That was difficult. Just honestly having difficult conversations and being okay with them being hard was probably the biggest starter. Internally, like with co-founders and early team members, then working our way out, going to the investors, telling them where we're at. We're not necessarily done, but like, this is where we're going to be. Do you have questions? And they did have questions. And so it was like being willing to answer those questions and let them know, like, this is my first rodeo. Like, I have not done this before. If you have advice, please let me know. This is the best way that I see about going this for right now. But I have open ears and I like want to work through this together. And then going a step farther in the circle is like, in working our way out was social media and the community, the people who had used our app, the people who had followed along, and just being able to tell them, like, unfortunately what was happening, but leaving everybody with the sense of hope. Like, this isn't a failure. You can call it a failure if you want to, but there's so much good that came out of it. If anything, I got to meet the coolest people ever. We did build a community that's worth something. And so being able to just like pull out the positives and like lean into the fact that like, we don't want this to be the end. We want it to be just like the beginning of something that is new. So it's kind of a ramble, but definitely like working our way out of the circle and just starting first and foremost with having those conversations was, the biggest thing that we had to do when starting to figure out like what's going on here, where are we going.
So I guess there's a couple things in this that I'd like to maybe just articulate even harder. You're a pretty authentic person, and I think you wear your emotions on your sleeve, which is this good. And so I think the people that work with you feel like you gave them a shot. I mean, whether it's your people internally or whether it's your advisors or it's your investors. And so I think one of the takeaways I would say in this, Brigit, is being authentic, right? I think you've always been authentic. And then having hard conversations while being authentic, I think is good, right? And so I think as entrepreneurs, sometimes we tend to shy away from this because we're like, man, that's sticky, hard. I don't want to go do it. But I think like, ethically, you have to go do it, right? You have to have the conversations, and then you have to do it in a way that's fair, but it's honest about it, right? And so I think that's one piece, and I think that's a good skill regardless of what you do, right? I just think that like the more of those in the corporate world and your startup that you're working in today, like those skills are super good. If you can have hard conversations and you can do it constructively and fairly, like I think lots of things get easier, because I think so many people just put that under the rug and they just basically say, we'll let it build up. And then bad stuff happens. And so I think there's good hygiene in doing that with your team as well as externally. So that's one. The second one is, I think you reframed it without saying it. I think, external failure may be internal success, right? Where it's like you learned a ton. My first startup, I failed, but I learned something that I'll never forget for the rest of my life. And so externally, people looked at it as a failure, but like I learned a ton and I'm applying it to whatever job I'm doing, whether it's the next startup or whether it's my corporate job. And I think we have a fear of failure in this industry where it's like, I think people are so afraid of like taking risks because of this. Whereas I think if they reframe it a little bit, where it's like, I learned a ton and I'm not going to do these 5 things again because that's what I've learned from, and I'm going to apply it to whatever I do next. And so I think we have to have that mentality, and it's okay to like basically sunset something if you have that mentality, in my opinion. And so I don't know if you've got any comments on either one of those, but I think those are 2 big takeaways that I think are things that will drive you going forward and I think are really healthy.
No, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's so spot on, Todd.
Okay, so let's pivot to what are you doing? What is Host Happy Hour? And how is this like a derivative of what you did before, and what's the new model?
Okay, I love it. Yes, let's share. So basically, Host Happy Hour, again, still a work in progress, but it's a work in progress that is showing signs of like, this is sticking. It's a sticky business.
There's a business.
Yeah, it's so fun. Prior, Fomeno, we had over 13,000 users on our app. We were building the sense of community. We were starting to get there, but like the customer retention was really difficult to keep because the product, like I said, wasn't really product market fit, and also revenue, like period. It was so hard to monetize on this app. We never actually truly monetized with our core product. Originally, we were trying to take a cost per transaction, but it was really hard to monetize the partnerships. There was just a lot of things going in there that were very difficult. And it was this constant friction where it's like, just things aren't clicking like we thought. Whereas now with Host Happy Hour, basically what we're doing, well, one, to that point, we're making revenue, which is super fun. I know it's a clear sign of like, you're on the right track. Like things are starting to click. So
you're adding value, right? Like somebody's willing to basically pay for value.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one of the coolest tests to run is like, if people are willing to pay and they don't know you, people don't know you and they're willing to pay for your product or service, like you're taking steps in the right direction. It might not be the perfect version, but like we have a problem that is worth money to solve. So that was just a really fun thing. I still remember the first like dollar we made. I was just like, this is great. This is so fun. So basically,
elevator pitch. You got to give me the elevator pitch of what it is.
Host Happy Hour. What are we? We are a closet clean out event experience. At least that's what we've been thus far. So basically what happens is if you are trying to clean out your closet, you have a lot of good pieces in there. They just don't serve you anymore. You don't wear them, but you spend some good money on them. You can come to our events. You can reserve a rack. The rack usually costs $25 for one or $30 for 2 racks. The racks fit about 30 pieces of clothing items a piece. You'll come in, you'll have your rack reserved, you'll hang your items. We have all the materials there for you. You'll price your items quickly, and then you'll leave. And then the next day we'll host an event where we bring the community in to shop your racks, and then you'll make like 65 to 70% of the sale. So I'd say on average, our sellers are making at least $350, which is really cool compared to industry standards right now and what you can make on the clothes just sitting in your closet. So yeah, I mean, the events though, like they're not just supposed to be some like, oh, let me do like a garage sale type thing. They're supposed to be fun. And I think that's really what we're anchoring around is like a fun experience for the community that, yes, it has to do with clothes and getting rid of your closet and, things of that sort. But we call it a pricing party when people come in to price their items. And oh my gosh, we had an event in Minneapolis last month and man, was it a party. It was like the most fun party I've ever been to. Like we had champagne, we had like, the music was playing. It was so elevated. Like I've never had a shopping experience, let alone a secondhand shopping experience that felt so bougie. Like I felt like I was an influencer at this event and it was just like crazy to experience that as just like a normal gal. So, yeah, and the shopping part was too. Like we had partnerships with local vendors and coffee shops. The coffee was on the house. The coffee was closet clean out like flavors and oh my gosh, it was so fun. And so we were partnering with like a wedding venue and have been ever since in terms of like actually hosting these events, so they feel very elevated and fun for them.
How many people did you have at the Minneapolis event? Like, give me a sense of scale.
So we sold out of racks. So every event that we've done, we've basically sold out of selling clothing racks, which again, product market fit. It's kind of fun to absolutely be like at the threshold of capacity. So we sold over 100 clothing racks. And we had, I think, 65 sellers at the event. And then in terms of shoppers who came, I think we had like 350 to 400 people within 4 hours come through.
That's pretty cool.
So
yeah, that's awesome.
It was fun.
That's good. And so what made that one so special? Like where does all of the elevated bougie part of this come from? Is it your marketing? Is it the venues or a combination of you from a partnership standpoint as well as the venue? Like how do you recreate that in a box that is not just tied to this Minneapolis event? And as you do something in Omaha, it's going to be similar kind of look and feel.
Yeah. So we've had 4 different, we've had since we started, from the very beginning, like the first time we started hosting one of these events, we were hosting it out of like a unvacated, building basically.
Yeah,
and it's just like free space.
Vacant
like,
business.
Yeah, exactly. So was it bougie and elevated? No, it was not. And but we got the model down. Like we were like, oh, this works. Like we sold out of clothing racks at that event. So what would happen if we increase the square footage, elevate the experience? What could happen then? So yeah, we started from the bare bones. It didn't start off as like this bougie elevated Minneapolis experience, but we got the systems and like the core business model to make sense and to work. So yeah, I would say to your question, like what does that? I think one for sure, it's the right venue. we all experience that. You go to an event and it's the right venue. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be this incredible place, but like definitely clean, and having that elevated experience to walk through is first and foremost very important. But like we call it host happy hour. Happy hour being the brand, like coming together with friends for discounts, fun times, like discounted clothing in this instance, but also you can have a fun little beverage to sip too. It's really like what we're anchoring around. But we are calling it like host happy hour because we feel like we're hosting an experience, at least from the experience form of happy hour. It is something we're hosting. And like when you have the right partner, in this instance, it's these wedding venues to host with us, oh my gosh, like they are the professionals at hosting. And frankly, we're learning so much from them. Um, but wow, yeah, when we have the right partner, it's incredible how fun these events can be.
Well, and I think the idea of doing it with a wedding venue is good because that's their job, right? They're creating a special event. And so their ability to understand the details, to understand how to make that a special day, if they just basically take 50% of that and apply it to your event, you have a pretty special thing. So I think like that was smart to pick them because there's good alignment on making a moment special. So that's good. A lot of this seems like it's got a pretty heavy marketing component of it, right? Where it's a brand, which we kind of talked about, and creating experience. And then you're basically have kind of two demographics, right? You have people that want to buy and then people that want to clear out. And my guess is they're different. You've got the people that are getting rid of their stuff in their closet, probably maybe have a little bit more disposable income. They're probably a little bit older. And then the people that are coming are maybe younger, looking to upgrade their wardrobe. And so maybe talk a little bit about just honing in and understanding I have two different buyers in this that I have to engage in a network, really.
Totally. I think that was one of the cool things to figure out, especially in the early times of running this event before it became an elevated experience, is really digging out those personas. Because correct, like our sellers and our buyers are slightly different. There is some overlap, but I'd say in general, like it's primarily female. Our seller, she's probably like 25 to 45 years old. A lot of like moms who, bodies have changed, styles have changed, preferences have changed. I remember this one mom came in and she had this beautiful white wardrobe. And oh my gosh, everything, like I wanted to buy absolutely everything. And I was just like, oh my gosh, why are you getting rid of these clothes? She's like, oh yeah, I love them, but like I don't wear white these days. Like
I have kids.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh right, makes sense. Which you could, yeah, it was kind of fun to see. And it's kind of like that big sister, little sister mantra almost. It's like these slightly more like grown up, sophisticated women are like have these awesome clothes that just aren't serving them as much anymore. And knowing that they can, through us, like connect with the right up and coming young female who's maybe just getting started in her career and like doesn't have as much disposable income, looking to shop a little bit more like sustainably. There's a lot of different things there, but it's the older sister who's like, oh my gosh, yeah, just check out my closet. Like I've got a lot of pieces for you. Oh my gosh, you can have that at such like a discounted rate, almost giving it out for free kind of thing. So yeah, we've really, it's been fun exploring the different personas of who the ideal seller and shopper is.
And so what do you think about like just buyer fatigue or seller fatigue? I mean, so, basically if you went and did this event in Minneapolis at this venue, could you do it 2-3 more times a year? Do you think you engage the same audience? Is it a different audience? Is it 80% the same? Like, what do you anticipate as you do repeats in these regions?
So it'll be exciting to see what does happen. We have a couple hypotheses though going around with this. And every place where we've hosted it one time, the second time we've hosted it, it's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger.
Awesome.
Friends bring their friends, right? And so it's like, that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a community event. So the fact that in Minnesota, our first time ever doing this, and truly so much of this comes down to the venue that hosted with us. And there were a couple of like influencer, like people who sold, or honestly just people like influencers are, that's such a vague term, but like even people who are just so rooted in the community that have other friends that have great closets that could clean out. I mean, wow, the power of that messaging and sharing that has been so powerful for us, even when it comes to first launching in a new market. But for Minneapolis, we are looking at potentially, and any location for that matter, doing it seasonally because as the seasons change, so does typically your wardrobe.
Sure.
And just knowing that we might have to find new ways. Like the Minneapolis venue, every parking spot was filled. Like there was no more room from a shopper perspective to come in. So we're like, okay, how do we manage this this is the first time, like what about the second time? Like what's that going to look like? We want to make sure that the shopping experience stays high level. And definitely we were getting to a point at one of the hours, like I think it was an hour in, where it was almost too busy. So just trying to, which is again, the best.
Great problem. Great problem.
All of us, but co-founders look at each other, we're like, this is the best day of ever. This is so fun. So lots to learn in figuring all of that out. But yes, I think they're only going to continue to grow. Just being able to make sure that we can get on top of, despite growth, being able to still create a very positive experience for those coming to shop and sell. And then, hopefully doing it seasonally and then maybe adding in some additional revenue streams to make sure that this is sustainable for us in the long haul.
I'm just kind of curious on the seasonal part. Like, do you think that people sell their stuff seasonally, or do they just bring, like, I'm just going through my closet and I'm doing everything? And so I get the seasonal, like, things change, but like, do people that are selling stuff out of their closet delineate this is summer versus winter type stuff and how they sell it?
Yeah, I think it depends. I think that honestly, there's a lot for us to get in the middle of that and be more of like a strategic, hey, here's the best way to organize your closet. And yes, some of that does come with cleaning out the items that no longer are serving you and that you're no longer maybe loving. So us getting in front of it and just almost acting as a guide to clean out seasonally is something that we're working on right now. But I think it really just depends on the seller. There are some people who love to shop every day, it's payday, we're going shopping, or like, some people just have more disposable income and they just love clothes and their styles change. The buying habits of the consumer are just very interesting, and there's definitely different buckets of people. So it's not really a one size fits all, but definitely there are a lot of people who do like shopping, do like buying. Their styles change, their preferences change, and so they want to clean out their closets accordingly. So definitely some wiggle room and things still for us to figure out and explore exactly, who falls into what bucket and how we can best get them in at the right time. But definitely there are a lot of people who do clean out their closets seasonally, just to make room for, the winter clothes, the spring clothes, and seeing what they don't really like anymore in the process.
So you alluded to a little bit about like maybe some ancillary services above and beyond this, right? And so one of the things that's interesting is you're building a community of people, right? And the demographics are pretty tight, right? Like you talked about two personas, but there's a lot of overlap from a shopping perspective. They may be in different stages of life and career and financial. And so that gives you some opportunity to think about like other ways to monetize this in between events. And so maybe talk to me a little bit about what you're thinking there, because, if you go to an event and you end up having 400 people plus a handful of 65 sellers, that's pretty interesting. And you start multiplying that times, let's say you get to hundreds of these a year, that becomes an interesting list that has a pretty tight demographic that there's probably other things that you can monetize and sell to them.
For sure. This is the exciting part about like what's ahead for us, that at this point we have these events. Absolutely. Like there are ways that we can improve and elevate them, but we know how they work. I mean, we can set up and tear down. I mean, even just the systemization of packing all this equipment into like the most
compact space you can.
Yeah. I mean, we put so much work into it. So the events themselves at this point are like in a pretty good spot. It is just the sense of, with these events, if we just even think, again, back to the basics of why our last business didn't work, unit economics. If we relook at that just topic of conversation, with these events right now, we make, to host at these beautiful wedding venues, I mean, it would usually cost upfront thousands and thousands of dollars to host a 2-day event, but we've worked out like a profit rev share with them. So they make a percentage of every sale, which also incentivizes the venue to really get the word out, tap into their community, et cetera.
You're doing it in a time where they probably aren't the most busy with their facility. So it's sitting vacant for a lot of it. And so monetizing it is beneficial to them.
Right. Yeah. So with that, they get a profit share. We get a percentage of the profits, but the seller really takes most of the profits home. Like at this previous Minneapolis venue, I mean, the sellers made 70% of everything that sold. Like that's crazy. And that's also why we got so many great sellers in, because they had really great brands and they knew what they were worth and they wanted to capitalize. But But so then that leaves us with like a 10 to 15% margin at the end of the day, which is like, ooh, okay. On secondhand clothes, we're back to the same question that we had in our previous business. A little bit better off, but still it's the same unit economics problem. So how we've begun to frame this internally, and again, work in progress, but I think it's really cool in today's society to just see like the brands that start with the community and then add products off of them. If you can build a great community with people who have similar alignments and values and things like that, it's so awesome to see how you launch a little product or you test run this or you throw that in there and see who bites and like what hits.
Yeah.
And so we're starting to reframe this as like, could these events be more of just like a community experience where we're bringing the right people to the right tables and then offering them maybe an additional service or product or something? Maybe it's styling, which is something we've really been exploring just because that's something our team internally has some experience with. Maybe it's, product suggestions. Maybe it's a bit of both. Maybe, there's a lot of maybes here of what it could be. But first and foremost, like we have nailed being able to bring hundreds of people into a location in a very small period of time where they love the experience. And so, yeah, definitely leaning into like what are the potential options of what we could add on to that to continue to add to the experience that we could potentially monetize a bit more off of. Because these events are like, I was driving all this equipment around. We did one in the Black Hills, Fargo, Omaha, and Minneapolis in 1 month time. So yes, I drove all this equipment. Like it's expensive if we were to pay someone else to do this at scale. So just making sense of like how to scale it up definitely requires an additional revenue stream.
What percentage of the women that are shopping for goods are you married, do you think? Is there a referral? Like you basically get this wonderful experience at like a wedding venue. And if 50% of them are not married and, is there an association or brand association with when the time comes, here's how to think about it. Because you'd think that there's some overlap and some good experience for them that maybe the wedding venue would really appreciate.
Totally. Even like shout out to Molly. She's like one of the Hutton House's lead ladies, which is the Minneapolis venue we went to. She's awesome. She totally was like, she saw the vision of this before we could even articulate it really and was like, yes, I love it. Let's do it. But it was really fun to see at our event in Minneapolis, her walking around, and anytime people were checking out, especially if they brought like a husband or a boyfriend or something, and they even, they're at the checkout counter, we would ask, we chat, like we're looking to build a brand. We're looking honestly just to make friends with people and like, oh, it's so fun. But yeah, we just ask, what are we doing here? Like, oh my gosh, you have a ring. Like, are you guys engaged? Immediately they say yes. It's like, oh my gosh, do you have a wedding venue picked out? No. Molly, within 2 seconds, they're talking to Molly.
Exactly.
So it's, it was fun to even see some of that happening. And so that, to your point, Todd, is like, there's a lot of other ways in addition to the wedding venue that I think just bringing people together and understanding where they're at and what they're looking for, you can kind of connect the dots. Yeah,
it's exciting. And so I guess to take away and to be super clear, I think you found one aspect of it that has some product market fit. I think you've got some operational pieces to think about it to make it scale. I think what's interesting is, if you get these venues kind of on a long-term contract, does some of that operational complexity go away, right? They basically either are buying the equipment to keep there because they're doing multiple ones a year. And so, there's probably still some work for your team to go do in each one of those scenarios, but you're not shuttling stuff around the Midwest, trying to, get the same equipment to all these different locations over time. So that's one, but I think like that's a beachhead that basically is looking like there's a value prop, there's revenue being generated, and there's a community. And I think now what you're saying is, I've got all these opportunities to think about from a community perspective, and I'm going to do it again. I'm just going to run a whole bunch of experiments, and I'm going to figure out what works, and we're going to continue to build on this. Is that a fair way to kind of maybe summarize kind of where you're at?
Yeah, totally. I think we're at that point where it's, yes, we understand the community. The community is excited about these events. It's like, what else could we release that not only is a value? That one of the biggest things for us is we relate to our customers so deeply. We are them. And so we care very deeply about like what we offer them and what we encourage them to buy. Like we know how hard our customers are working for their money. Like we do the same thing.
Right.
And so we're very, very, very like specific about how they spend their money and very like protective over how they spend their money. And so Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that we really have been taking into consideration too, is just like making sure if we are offering something else, because we know that is coming, that it is worth paying for and it solves a problem that they have. But yeah, it's exciting to explore like, okay, we've nailed this one component, like what more else is there? And I think a lot of businesses go through that. It's like, let's start with the core product, which we've kind of nailed in some capacity. It's like, okay, now what next? Like what's next on deck here in terms of like leveling up the offering that we have for our customers.
It is exciting. It is.
Yeah.
So we're about 45 minutes in. I guess maybe pivoting to kind of the last question I would have is, this hasn't been a linear 2-year progression for you by any stretch of the imagination. There's been a lot of, jags in the road. And I'm curious about if you were talking to other entrepreneurs about your journey or your takeaways over the last, handful, 24, 36 months, what would be like the top 3 kind of takeaways or things to like maybe share that basically are some lessons learned? Because I think that's ultimately what people want, right? They're like, how do I not have as painful of experience? I'm going to have some problems. I'm going to make some mistakes. Everything isn't going to work out. But like, what would you share as advice of maybe top 3 things that, you would recommend entrepreneurs to really think through?
Not to plug Wildfire here, but like low key, whether it's Wildfire or somewhere else, genuinely, I mean, there's so many takeaways we learned from building a business that straight up didn't work, and then also building one that's like starting to work. Regardless, like I am just such a firm believer that if you want to go far, like you need to go with the right people, and good mentorship is so important. Like genuinely, Todd, like I wish everybody could have the experience of working with Wildfire just because of the value add. Yeah, I mean, seriously, it's so powerful. And there's so many entrepreneurs out there who have these great ideas and understand these industries, and they want to make it happen.
Really well.
And they just don't have the little places.
How do I do it?
Yeah.
How do I do it?
Or they just like get stopped. Like there are problems they simply can't face, and their lives are busy, and they just kind of, it's not even that they give up. It's just that they stop working on it. And so, yeah, I would say first and foremost, like find good mentorship, and just not even just like the word mentor. It's like find someone. Like a true mentor is someone who, when you're facing a problem, you can call them and there's not going to be judgment. It's going to be like, let's figure this shit out,
Yeah, exactly.
Let's figure this out. And so I appreciate that so much with you and your team. And so that would be number 1. Find someone you can call when you have the problems. The second thing I would say is like, especially when it comes to building a community, people work with people they like. And one of the best ways I think to be likable to people, I don't even like phrasing it like that, but it's like give first, like, show up to these conversations. How can I help you? Like, what do you need? What is your dream with even these wedding venues? It's like, what are your values? Like, let's make sure we align here. Let's have coffee. Let's chat about it. It's just like people buy things from people they like. You don't want to like go in selling first. It's like, no, just like build a genuine connection with these people and genuinely want to help them. Like this is real stuff. And these are real people and they have dreams too. Like learn what those are and see how you can align. And I'd say that's number 2. It's just like, people buy things from people they like. So build genuine connections with people. And you can go so far. And then the third thing I would say is, I think like it's inevitable when you're building a company that like you're going to get exhausted, and there are going to be days where you're like, this sucks. Like, I don't think this is going to work. I mean, it could be more than days where I think that period.
No question.
It could be months where you're like, this is crazy, and you're probably going to hear it from a lot of people, like, family members who are concerned, like, is this the right thing? Are you wasting your time? All the things like that. But genuinely, like, back to our initial point, something that me and my husband talk about a lot is just the fact that like life is really short. And if this was a startup where I didn't connect with my consumer, I didn't really like that product and service myself, like, I didn't really think it was actually solving problems, I should probably throw in the bag. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. It's not worth it to me. Like, I don't get it. Like, it doesn't add value to my life and like get me excited. Whereas like this startup, genuinely, I was thinking about this. I was like, if it ends up failing and I don't make a single dollar and actually I'll lose money off this, I'm still going to consider it a success, like to your point, an internal success, Todd, because of the friendships I made from this, of the things that I've been learning that are only going to set me up for maybe what is next in the future. So I think I just yeah, I mean, on the days where I'm like, is this working? Like, does this make sense? All the things. It's like, I mean, even if it doesn't make sense, like I'm figuring it out. I'm having so much fun doing it. And like that matters. So yeah, don't know if that's maybe more so of like a hopeful thing of like the hard work you're putting in. Yeah, it might not turn out the way you want it to. It might actually be better than you even dream of. But I'm just like a firm believer if you're aligned with like the values of the company you're building, like it is worth it.
Yeah, maybe just to like maybe tighten some what you're talking about is I always feel like if I'm focused on something that I'm really passionate about, I bring the heat. Like I will actually do it really, really well. But like I have to like get aligned with what I want to do and like the opportunity and basically do it. And so there's been tons of times where it's like I picked up something that I was kind of interested in, but like just didn't have it longer term. And so I think always trying to figure out like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing right now? And if it is, then generally a lot of things that people would see as work are not work. And don't get me wrong, there are still hard days. I mean, even doing this accelerator, it's not been super easy, but we've had a lot of green lights because we're doing the right things. We're listening to people like you, right? We're basically saying, what does Brigit need in a program? And then how do we just consistently get better, right? Like every year you look at say, like, I'm just getting better. And I think if we do that, then basically, I have a lot of reason to get up in the morning, right? And I think it's the same thing for you.
Yeah.
And so I think all three of your ones are really good. I think that the mentorship is a good one. I mean, I think our program is great from that standpoint. I think that you just want people that have been there too, right? I think so many times there's a lot of mentors that are well-meaning, but like, is their experience for what you need today as applicable as it needs to be, right? Where it's like, it's a different type of business, it's a different scale, it's a different dollar amount. And so, or different operationals, like I think there's all different things like that. And, like a lot of things in digital are different than brick and mortar, and you're kind of mixing both, right? And so making sure as you continue to scale, you find people that are at your level. I think that's the important thing to continue to scale that. We as founders are, we're generic, right? We just know software. And so I think, finding those people that kind of fit the specific needs you have is really good. So I think those are good. I appreciate you taking some thought and thinking about like what can people leverage, because your journey is not unusual, right? I think there's lots of people that go through iterations, they go through pivots. I just don't think we talk about it enough, right? Because I think we only want to talk about the success stories and like, yeah, I went from here to here and everything went well. And it's like, well, 90% of the things are not like that. It's not a linear process. And so, I think, you sharing your experiences, especially from, season one, where it looked like you had a lot of things going in the right direction. And I didn't know all the details, right? Like, and so it wasn't until after, we hung up and you and I talked a little bit, where like, there's some hair on this one a little bit. We got to go figure it out. So thanks for being transparent and honest.
Absolutely. So Todd, even last comment, I'm curious, like if you, were looking at yourself back in the day, like starting off an early company, like, what would be one or two key points that you wish, you could tell yourself or like someone in my shoes, if you were going through it?
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think like, when I did my first startup, I probably had more ambition than skill, right? And so, and I think for my first startup, the thing that I just didn't understand was go to market. I didn't understand sales. And, there was nobody in this community that had that experience. And so I floundered. And then, like I said, I probably had 16 employees. I sold my car to make payroll. I got out of my apartment to make payroll. And, you still believe that something's going to work. And then when it didn't, and you had to go to all these people and say, this isn't going to work, that's a scar that stayed with me the rest of my career. And I said, I am never, ever going to make that mistake again. So every single one of the things that I've ever done, there's a lot more thought about sales and marketing than I ever did. And to me, I always think about startups as it's really product and sales. Really, that's the only two things you focus on, right? And so, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs are probably better at the product than they are at the sales piece of it, right? So they're like, I can envision how to go build something, but can I actually get people to go do it? And so I think if I had some advice, maybe going back to your original question it's just that reinforcement of you need to lean into the sales and the marketing component of every startup. You may not be the long-term salesperson, but you're going to do the first handful of them. And I don't care whether you're a technical resource or a product resource, you're going to have to do sales. And then the same way, we have some salespeople that are great at sales, but they don't want to touch product. And it's like, you need at least a working knowledge of product. And so if you don't have those two pillars in some sort of alignment, they can't be like overly corrective. Like one, you're super good, and the other one you suck at. Like, I just think that you need some balance in both of those, because it doesn't matter. Early on, you can't afford to hire anybody else. You have to go figure that stuff out. So that would be if I went back, those are the things that I would wish I had learned earlier.
It's really good advice.
And, honestly, when I was at Concur, I had one of the founders say that exact same thing. He just said, Todd, really, there's only two places to be in a high growth startup. It's either product or sales, because everything else is a derivative off of that, right? Then it's support, and it's implementation, and it's account management. Well, it doesn't happen unless you have sales, right? And then you can't get sales unless you got product. And so I thought that was and that was a company that was doing, $5-6 million when I started. And, we took that model and got very good at both product and sales. I would say that we are a sales driven culture. And, when I left, we were $1.2 billion, right? And so that's a big change. But I learned a lot, right, from that perspective. So I do think it's important.
Absolutely. Gosh, that's awesome. Anything else?
I think your ability to learn is one that maybe gets under thought about. Like, I think like your ability just to continue to scale. And I think it's hard with entrepreneurs, right? Like, you want to be a bull in a china shop because you're doing something that nobody else sees. But on the flip side, how do you take constructive feedback and sift through that to say, that's a nugget and that's not, like, right? And so you have to like continue to grow and be accretive to all this feedback. And it helps that if somebody's got some credibility, but at the flip side, I think, you've been super coachable, right? I mean, so that's one of the things that I think is good, is like, we have some entrepreneurs that basically don't make the cut because they're just not coachable. They got it all figured out. And we're like, hey, not a great fit for our program, right? And so you're going to make some mistakes. And what we're trying to do is keep you out of the ditches. You're going to make some small mistakes, and you can afford that. But you have to be willing to listen. And so maybe that's the other piece of advice that I would say is be coachable, because that's not always easy to do.
Awesome. Well, it's much easier too when you do have good coaches as well. So
yeah, that's true.
No, I mean, I know, like, as a startup going through Wildfire, like, you guys are truly some like the most wise counsel of anything I've ever had, and it's so digestible. I mean, even sitting here, it's like, okay, keep talking, Todd. Like, what else you got? So, no, I'm super, super grateful for all the wisdom that you guys have, and ultimately, it's just come from years and years of experience, which is super valuable. So,
yeah,
love it.
Well, it's good. Well, Brigit, I appreciate it. I appreciate you, being honest about kind of the rise and fall, and then hopefully the rise again. And then just your experiences. I think it's good for other people to hear, because it's not a linear process. It's not always going to be easy. And I think, some of the guidance that you've given are super valuable. And hopefully in another season or two, you come back and you talk about what the next version of this is, because I think it's interesting to see the evolution happen.
Oh, let's do it. Let's look forward to that.
That's good. Well, good. Well, thanks, Brigit. I appreciate the time.
Awesome. Thanks, Todd.
If you enjoyed the podcast today, please just take a moment to rate it or comment on it for us. This feedback really helps us, and it helps us get the word out to helping other entrepreneurs and founders. Thank you.